Welcome to the Truth Talk Podcast, where we connect biblical truth with everyday life. All right, welcome back. We're excited to continue the conversation with Chip and Christy Collee. Last week, we got off to a great start talking about discipleship in the home, and we're excited to continue part 2 today. So let's get started.
So years ago, I came up with a prayer pattern for myself just to remind me to pray for my kids. And so I have for many years prayed that prayer pattern for my children. I learned that from a friend who said to me, get a prayer pattern and pray for your kids. And I so would encourage any parent listening to this, do it now. Yeah. You will not regret that. Because there's so much joy for me in seeing the Lord answer that prayer on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. I pray for the Lord's protection for my children. I pray for His direction for my children. I pray for correction, but Lord, please do it gently. Yes, sure. I pray that they'll grow closer to the Lord today. I pray that they'll shine for Him against the dark backdrop of this culture, that they'll shine for Him. I pray that they'll see Jesus and then be like Jesus. That's my prayer, PDCGSSB. And it helps me. But
it's not a word or anything.
If you have a pattern like that, I've got one for my grandkids now, and a different pattern. And it just helps you remember that, because look, we're forgetful people. I mean, how many times over and over throughout the Old Testament we see it? Remember, remember, remember. And what did they do? They forgot every time. We're forgetful, and God knew that. And that's why we set up these Ebenezer stones in our spiritual life to remind us of God's commands. And I think you've got to set those up for your children, and that's part of it, is praying for them, praying that God will protect them, but also direct their steps. And I can't overemphasize that. I think for me, it had to be some sort of regular pattern. Otherwise, I'm not sure. I'm too forgetful and too distracted.
Well, now, I can't remember the pattern, so I'll let Chip handle the pattern.
Yeah.
You didn't remember
the difference is she never stops praying for my
Right.
children, so that's the difference.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like about that is I've found myself, at bedtime and mealtime, sometimes you realize, it sounds very similar to what we pray all the time. Mm-hmm. And having a pattern like that is so helpful, that really, really gives you an opportunity to be intentional at what you're praying out. But also, obviously there's times you're praying on your own for your kids, but when you're praying with them to see, hey, look, we're going to pray about everything. Good things, hard things, things that are going on, and just being intentional with it, not sounding the same each time.
But I do think that it's going to sound the same some each time, and that's okay. I think there is a strength in the repetitiveness of that, and I think that it honors God too. Yeah. So.
And, as I think more about your question, just thinking here about intentionality, things that we did. So, for example, this is kind of a silly example maybe, but because I was on staff at a church, I would have to be at church very early on Sunday morning. You can relate. Yep. And so very early on, when it came to Easter Sunday, Christy determined, we do the candy and the whole thing with the baskets and whatever, something for the children. She determined early on, you know what, we're going to do that on Saturday morning, because Dad can't do that on Sunday morning. Yeah. And that became kind of unintentionally a really cool pattern for our family, where Saturday was candy and we enjoyed giving gifts and enjoying that about Easter. Mm-hmm. Lots of good food. Sunday became about resurrection. Yeah. And we didn't really plan it out that way. It really happened because of the schedule that Dad had, I would say. But
and the Easter Bunny schedule.
Yeah, that's true. Because everybody knows.
Joking.
No, that was never a big deal, that part of it. But the big deal was that she was intentional about that time frame, because for us it wouldn't have worked another way. Mm-hmm. And I think the intentionality of things like that, I think about Christmas for us. I mean, we always read Luke 2 before everybody goes downstairs and opens gifts. And to this day, my children, it's a little harder now. We got more people gathering up, but it was just a thing. We're going to do that before we go downstairs. And I think anything you can do, holy days and holidays, I call it, trying to make those days special and doing things that build those traditions into your family. And when I say that, building in biblical tradition, be careful about, all of the traditions are fine, but my kids, they don't talk as much about what the menu was as they do some of those other things that she was very intentional about incorporating, weaving into our celebration of holidays. I would also say, revisiting the Ebenezer stones was important for us. So, for example, my daughter, we would go back and talk. She's a kind of person who, she would ask me, Dad, is that what really happened? Did I know I made that decision? That she was one of those kids, and we would go back to that moment often and remember together. Let's talk about, how did the Lord draw you to Himself? What did that look like? Because we saw that. We watched the Lord use His Word, circumstances, other people, prayer to draw our children to Himself. We watched it happen. And so going back and revisiting that together as a family, don't make that a one and done. Let's go back and talk about that as we're going.
Because a lot of Christian families, their children do find the Lord early, which is pretty incredible. And but I think it's important to go back and remind them of that moment, even though they don't remember it necessarily.
Absolutely.
And I would also add, don't be afraid to continually go over the basic things. Don't assume. Let's talk about, when I say the gospel, what does that mean exactly? Well, let's see. God sent His Son, and His Son redeemed us, and He died on a cross, and He was buried. Let's don't wait until that story pops up in the storybook Bible. Man, let's talk about that. What is that? The death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. That's worth talking about. And as our pastor says often, you don't ever get past that. You just go deeper into it. And that's true in our families. Don't forget to talk about that together intentionally. And there's so many great things out there. I mean, we have some friends right now. Their children are very young, and he's a Bible teacher, a little more academic minded than me, but they've got those kids now. They will ask them a catechism question, and they can fire those answers off. What's our only hope in life and death, and they'll tell you. And so there's all kinds of resources out there, kids' catechism books that you can pick up and emphasize those things to your children.
But that's muscle memory.
Sure.
That's what you're training. It doesn't. I mean, it matters what they're being trained to say, but it's more that they will revert back to that. So many times with our kids, it's worship music that they go back to when they hear something because they've heard it their whole lives.
Right. One of the things I think has been so encouraging just talking through this is the things that keep jumping to me is just the intentionality. But intentionality doesn't have to be giant. It doesn't have to be these huge moments that are planned and scheduled. And, like we said, it's not this huge worship service that you're having in your house. It's hey, let's find a verse that we can claim and learn together. Let's make sure that prayer is a regular part, not just at mealtime and bedtime, but anytime. And just those little moments, being consistent, being intentional with them is really, that's encouraging, because I think so many people are overwhelmed with that, and it's intimidating.
Sure.
But to hear it's little things, it's those little pieces, little moments that you capture that you go back to. I think the repetition is so very important.
Well, I go back to an example of that. When my kids were little, sometimes on Saturday mornings, they'd make a trip to Home Depot with me. We didn't really have any reason to go there, just to walk around and give her a break for a few minutes and just walk around Home Depot. And it occurred to me one day, we were parking, and I thought about the way that we sort of just instinctively will try to get the closest parking place. And, I've been around teenagers all throughout my ministry, and I know that parents fight this entitlement mentality. And so I parked as far away from the door as I could. I mean, just literally way out in the parking lot. And there's no other cars, and the kids are looking at me like, Dad, what's wrong with you? And we got out of the car, and we started walking up towards the store. And I was reminding them that my dad, who was my hero, died very young. And before he died, he was in a wheelchair. And I said, Meemaw had to park close to the door because she had to help him get out of the car into the wheelchair. And I said, God has blessed us that we can walk. And so we held hands that day, and I never forget, we with every step we said, thank you, Lord. Like, thank you. Now, what was I trying to do? You're teaching them that this is all a gift from the Lord. Everything's a grace gift.
Yeah.
And so all we can do is say, thank you, Lord, like that you've given me breath in my lungs. And if your kids start seeing life through a stewardship lens like that, it'll change everything.
Yeah.
Because then it's not, what am I owed? It's, my goodness, look at what God's given me, the blessings of today. And so I think you're right. There are some simple, teachable moments there if we'll look for them. But again, I think that starts with our heart. It starts with us seeking after the Lord ourselves, and the Lord will open those doors of opportunity. And I want to be careful. Every day didn't look like that at our house. I wish it did. It didn't. Some days we were tired or angry or whatever it was. Distracted, yeah. I think about the screw tape letters. If the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Yeah. And I think our culture is we're dangerous.
Stepping on toes now,
Yes.
I'm sorry.
It's such a dangerous because we want. No parent wakes up and says, "Wow, I think I won't. I think I'll hurt my kids," or "I think I won't." Yeah. Nobody's doing that. The problem is we get distracted with things that are lesser things.
That's one thing I wanted to ask y'all is what in this season of life, you're now getting to have fun with grandkids. But when you're looking, I know both of y'all are still not only in your family, but ministry and all the things that you do. You see lots of families. Chip, you've talked about the cultural challenges a little bit already, but what are some of the things that challenge families, that get in the way, that keep them from doing some of these things? What do y'all see are some of those big pieces that are really challenging families today?
Well, I mean, again, I think if we wear a lens of stewardship, it changes everything. Time, talent, treasure. So we're wearing a lens that says this gift, this day is a gift, 24 hours. So if I say, wow, I'm so busy, Andy is not busy, I'm so busy, right? Okay, so the problem is I have 24 hours, you have 24 hours, and we have to determine how are we going to divide up that 24 hours that the Lord has given us. And I think if we wait around for the culture to decide that for our kids, it's going to be the wrong answer.
Yeah.
We have to take control of our time. And this is something that's not talked about a lot. I think about Jesus taught, of course, in the Sermon on the Mount that we lay up treasures in heaven, not on earth. Why? Because moth and rust are going to destroy that. And that's true. But in this temporary time, we can sort of accumulate some things. We can build a bigger barn and accumulate some things. But time is that irretrievable resource. We can't get it back.
Yeah.
It's just we can only measure it, but it's just floating away. And I think the secret to the sauce there is taking control of our time. And I think we have noticed that a lot of the young parents, they want this, but it's as if they're on a merry-go-round and they know they want to get off, but they're not quite sure how to exit. I believe that's our take on that, is that they do want to get off. Many of the Christian parents want to get off. They're just not quite sure how to do it. So I think you have to be honest with yourself about your time. I'm very time optimistic. I always think I can make a little more time. There's enough time, and she's not that way. I'm very optimistic about time.
I'm realistic.
True.
I think this looks different in every family.
Yeah.
I think what you're asking is really about how to fit it all in sometimes, because you feel like you can't, because you have a kid, a child who's really good at baseball, and you have a daughter or somebody who's really good at dance, and you're trying to fit all of these things in, which are all very good things. And church activities, and Wednesday nights, and all the things, and camps, but I think you do have to, as a family, kind of prioritize what is going to be important for each child, but under the umbrella of your family, because I think sometimes you can let a child dictate what the rest of the family does. Right. And so I think you have to look at it, individual children under an umbrella of a whole family. Because if it's getting in the way of your family being able to be minister to others, or ministered to, then you have to look at it.
And that's a battle, right? Because pretty soon then church is just one of the things you do, and your faith is just one of those things rather than being the entirety of it. And so, but it is challenging. And I feel like today it's harder and harder for families. Think about schedules. It used to be Sundays and Wednesdays were kind of sacred. Now they're free game for all the tournaments and all the competitions and all the school trips and everything else. And so I do think the stewardship of time is such an important aspect to this. And it is so hard, but I loved your picture of the merry-go-round, because I think my family's felt like that is, I feel like it's too much at times, but what do you stop doing? And what, am I taking something away from my kids? Are we not keeping up? Are we not doing the right things? I mean, that's a hard decision to make as a family when your kids love things and figuring out how do we disciple them in the right way to have their priorities right? How do we stewardship that time right? Any just practical tips on maybe ways families can either just take a measurement of that or maybe evaluate that in a healthy way?
Well, I think we've talked about, our kids did lots of things. I think the culture is telling us that they should do all the things, and I don't think that's true. I think maybe sometimes I think it's hard for parents to choose, and you want to say yes to all of that, and you just can't. Life is full of choices, and so you have to make some decisions, and your children will learn through that there are decisions to be made. You can't do all of those activities, at least in this season. And finding what they're truly passionate about. I think a word of caution to parents there would be, just make sure whose desire are we chasing here? Is it the student's passion, or is it dad's passion or mom's passion? Yeah. We have to be very careful there, I think. And having been there, we have to be careful that we are helping them pursue what God's designed them to be, not necessarily living vicariously through them.
And that takes some work, right? Because everybody's got to be honest at that point.
That's right.
Go, okay, I think I may be driving this a little more than you are. Let's figure this out.
Right. And then realistic. I think realistic for your kids. Some kids are wired for certain things, and just being realistic about what they're wired for. And a perfect example. We did sports, we did dance, we did all the things. But I wanted our kids to have some opportunity to do something musical. We're musical. I felt like, we speak that language. Our kids should speak that language. And so I insisted that our son start taking cello lessons. He was very young. Three.
Wow.
And so he did. He had his little cello and this great teacher, and he did everything he was supposed to do, picked up on it real quickly. But what I realized was he didn't love that.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool. And frankly, I thought they might give college scholarships for that or something.
Sure.
Like, I thought that might be a great idea. But when he and his mother convinced me at some point to put that thing down, and we put a guitar in his hand, and he never put it down.
Right.
And suddenly you didn't have to tell him to practice anymore because he wanted to do that. The same thing happened in sports. He played other sports, ends up on the golf team, and next thing you know, he wants to play every day because he wanted to do golf, not baseball. And so I think choices would be my number one thing. It's just don't try to do everything, and don't try to please everybody. I hear parents talk about this. Well, that coach is going to be disappointed or upset, or that teacher. You know what? It's okay. You are the parent, and you have to be the parent. And sometimes that decision might not be popular with the children or with the teacher or the coach. But you are God's assigned person to determine what's best for that child in that season. And I think honestly, I think there's not an easy way. Some of those are hard, and we've been there. Those are hard decisions. But as a parent, it's so worth it, I think, to guide your children.
At least have a conversation about it, an honest conversation with the child, and say, do you love this? Is this something you feel like you're good at? And if the answer is no, then pull it. There's nothing wrong with that. I was thinking too, and he was talking about that, how it's funny in this stage of life, looking back at the things that they did and didn't do, and the things that stuck and with them, and like guitar and things like that. And so as an adult, I'm not saying that you don't stay on the baseball team even if you're not going to be a major league ball player.
Right.
But what is going to be to your benefit when you're 25 or 26 rather than when you're 15.
Yeah. One of the things that y'all have talked about is the picture of stewardship. And in my mind, just the balance is another word, I guess, that comes to my mind. But it looks different for us as believers, because I think at times culture in the world around us is pushing us to outsource almost everything with our kids. And now education, we have lots of different tracks for education, but to some extent, education is in that, sports are in that, music are in that, and before long, it can be your spirituality too. And hey, if we just get them to church, if we just do some of these things, which is, hey, if you're going to do anything, that's a good place to do something, and we want to do all we can as a church to make the best out of that time. But at the same time, the balance of the time, the energy, the talents to go, okay, as a believer, that looks different than an unbeliever. And what we're really after is the eternal, not the things right here and now. And that's a challenge, because everything around us in culture is pushing against that. Everything you're seeing, whether it's on social media, just in your community, is sometimes hard, because you want to appear certain ways and you want to meet certain cultural demands, but you realize there's this constant clash between what we know as a believer and what we're hearing and seeing in the world. And so that stewardship, that balance, I think is such an important concept for really a foundational layer to all of this.
I agree. And that brings to mind for me, so you might have your child may say, for example, I don't like going to that particular church event because it's boring. Or I don't like being a part of that activity because it's boring, whatever it is. So the question I would ask the parent is, are you going to put your 9-year-old in charge of their health care as well? I mean, do they get to decide they don't want to go to the dentist because it might hurt? Are you going to let them drive your vehicle? I mean, you are the parent. And I, again, it sounds a little harsh, but I do think at some level parents need to hear this. You must put being their parent above being their pal at times. And I think you may have to make some hard decisions. When I was a kid, I would say sitting still and being quiet in the worship service was a priority for my parents. And I didn't much like that.
Right.
I don't like sitting still now. I certainly didn't like it then. But I'm thankful that they went the extra length there to I can remember one service in particular where my grandmother said to me, if you don't be still, your dad will have to come down out of the choir, and he did, and that was not a good situation for me.
Just real quick, I remember my dad was my pastor growing up, and I remember one Sunday sitting in the balcony with my friends, and we were talking or goofing off, and I realized he had stopped talking and was just looking at us. I'm surprised I'm still alive today, if I'm honest. So I know how that goes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we just have to be parents sometimes and make those hard calls. And I think, again, if you nurture that relationship all along the way, they will trust you making those decisions. Now, I'm not saying it's easy in that moment, and when they're teenagers and you don't make the choice that they want you to make in that regard, it can be hard. But I still think God will equip you as the parent to make those harder decisions.
And kids may not, until down the road, understand what you were doing, or even feel like you had a clue what was going on. There are a number of times I can look back and, now having kids going, man, I need to call my mom and dad and say thanks for this, or, hey, you know what, you were right about this. But what you said a minute ago about parents being the parent and not the pal or the friend or the whatever you want to call it, but just saying, next to your creator, I love you the most of anyone in this world.
Absolutely.
And I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm your biggest supporter. And I need you to trust me. Number one, your brain isn't formed, so you don't have to make this decision.
That's the truth.
But number two, I really do want what's best for you. And right now, this is what we think is best. And I need you to trust me. And those are hard conversations, because they don't always get it.
Right.
We don't always get it in my house right when it comes to those things.
Neither did we.
Right. As we think through a little bit more of this, any along the lines of the stewardship and the balance, are there some boundaries or some guidelines that y'all put in place, or even that you might recommend for families as they're thinking about, okay, how do we kind of put some of this in place? Are there some boundaries? Are there some measurements that we need to think through to say, hey, here's some things we could do healthy as a family to try to set ourselves up to just be healthy with this?
Well, I mean, not to be repetitive, but I do think that biblical stewardship is a real foundation there, because we live in a selfish, me-first culture, right? And the alternative to biblical stewardship is entitlement, right? I deserve this. And I think if we can lay a foundation, and that means mom and dad, we've got to lay a foundation that says, you know what? God owns it all. Psalm 24, the earth is the Lord's, everything in it, the seas and all who live in it. It's all His. And so we're just little managers that God has entrusted with this stewardship. And I think if we can see life that way, I think about the Mere Christianity, the Sixpence None the Richer, where the father gives the money to the child to buy a gift for the father. And you know, the father loves receiving that gift, but really he's sixpence none the richer because it was his money to begin with. That's us. And that's what we want to display for our children, is that it's all the Lord's, the time, the gifts that He's given us, certainly our financial resources, all of that is from Him. And I think if our kids see us learning how to manage that in a Christ-like way, I think it can set us up for great success in terms of what you're talking about, where there are boundaries. Those decisions will become easier as we see it through that lens, as opposed to what I want and what I deserve. And again, it starts with us, and that's counter flesh. The flesh is saying, all that's in me is saying, it's about me, it's about my comfort, it's about what I want, about what I need, and that's not what God is saying. He knows that the real joy will come as we surrender and submit to His lordship. And I think the more we can do that as parents, model that for our children, and that's another point. I think we're all looking for a microwave answer, if we're honest.
Yeah.
Give me the magic bullet. Give me the shortcut and let me go back and do it the way I want to do it. And that just won't work. Yeah. It's not God's way. God wants us to trust Him and rely on His power and His strength and not our own. And it's hard to hear the Lord speaking when we're running to and fro and not taking a minute to stop and listen to His voice. My sheep, they hear me. They know my voice. We've got to listen. And I think at that frenetic pace that we run sometimes in our culture as families, it's very difficult. I remember David Platt saying years ago, it really stuck with me. He was talking about living a life on mission, and he said, if I say, Lord, I'm willing to go anywhere in the world, I'll serve you anywhere in the world, and I don't have a passport, that's a little disingenuous. I mean, how are you going to go anywhere? You don't have a passport. Go get a passport, and then say, Lord, okay, I'm ready. Yeah. Well, I think in the same way, we've got to lay a blank check before the Lord as parents with our own time. It may mean that in a season I didn't play as much golf because it would mean that I was away from my children more, or whatever it is. Now, with that said, I think we were pretty creative about finding ways to do things that we all enjoyed as a family together, so that, if Christopher got a certain age, we could play golf together. Yeah. And that was 4 or 5 hours we could spend talking and being together, going to a football game or whatever it was. And the same for our daughter, finding things that she enjoyed that we also enjoyed. But I do think that lens of stewardship, I think, is very important. Seeing that it's all His and we're just the little managers.
Yeah. Well, this has been so good, and I hope encouraging to anybody that's listening, just because it's not the big, huge things. It's the intentionality, the little moments, the rhythms and patterns that you can establish with your family to keep our design, our Creator, God's Word in front of us at all times, and make it just part of life along the way. And
Can I mention one more thing?
Absolutely.
So this comes to mind. I just want to, if we're wrapping up, I just want to finish with this. So obviously, the love of Christ saturating your home. And that starts with your relationship, your love relationship with the Lord, and then just let that permeate everything. Seeing that everything's a grace gift, saturating your home in God's grace, giving each other grace, extending the same grace that we've received. We tend to think about that with coworkers and with others. That's also true in the laboratory of our homes. We have to extend that kind of grace. But the other very practical thing I want to say is make your home fun. It doesn't have to be. So I think you have to ask yourself, when you walk into your home, are you a thermostat or are you a thermometer? Mm-hmm. And are you setting a temperature of fun in your home? And Christy was great at this. She created these great moments out of very simple things for our kids so that a regular old Tuesday could be just something better than just a regular old Tuesday. So, for example, Tuesday might be taco night. Mm-hmm. Now, that sounds mighty simple, but it became a fun thing because it's taco night. It sounds silly, but it became a thing. So everybody's in a great mood because it's taco night. We're having tacos
Tuesday.
tonight.
There you go.
That's it. I'm trying to think of some other examples. One funny one, Christy had this dish that she made up, and it's an Italian. I don't even know how to describe it, but she sort of made it up. And somebody said, "What are we having for supper?" And she said, "Well, I just made that up." Well, I called it Chili Mac. I don't know why I called it Chili Mac, but I called it Chili Mac. Well, then the kids made up a song. Well, now that's a thing. Yeah. It's Chili Mac night, and we sing the song Chili Mac. I think you can be creative, and you want your house to be a place they don't dread coming. Yeah. You want their friends to enjoy being there. And that sounds great until it's been a long day at church and I get home and I really just want to sit down and be left alone. But man, keep that in view, that you want your home to be a haven, a place where your kids want to be there, their friends want to be there, because it's filled with love, it's filled with God's grace, and it's fun. Yeah. And that sounds simple, but I think there's so many things you can do to make that happen. And it's not the big things necessarily. It's not the Disney vacation, although we did all that, and that's fun. But there are some simple things that you can do to make your home a haven and make it a place of fun.
That's great. What a great way to kind of wrap this up, and just to think about stewarding all the opportunities, the little moments, the time, the energy, the talents that we have to make the biggest impact we can with our kids, to set up their generation and even your grandkids and great-grandkids' generation. So I appreciate y'all sharing all that. I think it was extremely helpful and encouraging, and look forward to seeing how some of our families around here might get to use some of those ideas. So I appreciate it. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Andy.